Zug zug.
Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome. For this video I wanted to do something slightly different and more impromptu because Blizzard just released the Warcraft Remastered Battle Chest, which includes remastered versions of Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, and a 2.0 update for Warcraft 3 Reforged. Blizzard announced this collection for Warcraft's 30th anniversary during their Direct, and actually said it would be available immediately. In particular, I want to talk about Warcraft 2 Remastered because Warcraft 2 is one of my most favorite games of all time. Seriously, if it wasn't for Warcraft 2, I likely would have never taken interest in any strategy games. I played Warcraft 2 religiously as a child, and I remember playing it online and through the single-player campaign countless times. Honestly, it's one of those games that I just keep going back to. I could play through a campaign, get through a few acts, and before I know it, the day is over, and then I'll go away, and then I'll come back to it a few months later and just do the same thing. It's one of those types of games. I saw reports saying that there were leaks about the remasters of Warcraft 1 and 2, even promotional artwork leaked for Warcraft 2 Remastered that looked amazing. Needless to say, I was really giddy and was like, oh my god, Warcraft 2 is actually getting a remaster. I am so excited, I can't wait to see how it looks. But I also worried about how these games would turn out, especially since the whole Warcraft 3 Reforged fiasco. When the games were officially announced, I eagerly watched the trailer, and yeah, the more I watched it, the more unsure I became. At first, I was super excited to see how Warcraft 2 would look updated, and the visuals just, well, underwhelmed me. It didn't look terrible, but I couldn't help but think that it looked a bit rushed. I really didn't know what I was expecting going into this, but nevertheless, I decided to pay Blizzard $15 because I was that curious to see how different it felt, and I am that much of a Warcraft 2 stans. So, here are my first impressions of playing, so let's take a look. Here we see the menu looks slightly different from the original. It has the familiar troll and elf artwork, which is nice. In the options, we can select Remastered and Classic Music and test out the sound card. The Voteman says that our sound card works perfectly, which is fantastic. As far as I can tell, there are no new musical arrangements in the remastered tracks, so that's basically what they are, remastered. So that kinda sucks, but it is what it is. You can also change the UI, which is also nice, and for the most part, the options are as they were in the original. We'll look at the campaign, and we can see Art of Ner'zhul represents the Orc Tides of Darkness campaign, even though he didn't really play a role until the Beyond the Dark Portal campaign, but that's just me being a nerd. Yes, I love this game that much. Here we see that you can select which mission you want to start, which is excellent. As you progress through the campaign, each mission is unlocked, so now you no longer need to rely on saves to play certain missions. You could still use a Tiger Lily cheat to jump around the missions, not that I would condone cheating, but the cheat codes are still there and still work, which is always a plus. In the missions, we see that there is a new interface that's similar to the Warcraft 3 human interface with castle bricks. Everything looks more detailed and there is a widescreen aspect. There are some quality of life improvements, like now we can see our objectives in the top left that can be toggled on and off. You could select up to 12 units now like you could in Warcraft 3. There's also health bars over units with damage that really helps us with unit management, so rather than just clicking on each individual unit, now we can actually see how much health they have. There are descriptions of each building, and now we can see everything that is possible to build. In the old game, the building button would appear as you build. So if you wanted to upgrade from Town Hall to a keep, you would have to build a barracks before the button would appear in the Town Hall. In the remaster, rather than just having the buttons appear as you build, they'll be hollowed out and tell you exactly what you need to build, just like in Warcraft 3. There are descriptions of units and spells now, so it's no longer just poking and finding out what happens if you're a new player. And the game also tells you what each unit does, how they're best used, etc, etc. So now the game will give you tips on each unit, such as how paladins make for an excellent counter against ogre magi, which means that both sides are totally balanced. A notable feature is the F5 button with the footman in the top left. If you press it, it shrinks the aspect ratio and goes back to the old graphics, so if you can't stand the new look or just want to play with the old look, It's as simple as pressing a button and it is totally seamless. It's also kind of cool seeing how the game changes from classic to modern and vice versa. Like, when you're in the new one, the screen will be all stretched out, and when you press F5, it'll zoom right back in, and as it zooms in, it'll fade into the old look, and it's just really, really neat to see exactly what changes from the new look versus the old look, so that I really, really like. I do want to say that I noticed after a while the new graphics start to look like the old graphics, which I suppose isn't a bad thing, but it also tells me that they could have done more to make the new graphics stand out more. I'll be honest, when I first saw the new graphics, I wondered if they visually enhanced the game with AI. I'm not saying they actually did, but this is present Blizzard we're talking about. But that's not to say that some elements don't look great. Like, the trees after they're chopped no longer look like cookie crumbs on the ground, they look like actual tree stumps. And the catapult sprite looks very sleek. Here you can see the finer details, like the sharpness of the bloody bones, and the launcher actually has a boulder in it now. That's something that always drove me nuts, like, you would see it empty, and then when it attacked, it would have a boulder all of a sudden. Now there is a boulder in it, so I think that's a really, really nice detail they added. Not only that, but the units look to have actual faces, and little changes like that make it stand out more. And I honestly wish that there was more of them in the new graphics. Now, of course, there are imperfections, especially since this is present-day Blizzard. Some aspects tell me that this was obviously rushed, like when we see the peasants chopping wood, their sprite frames don't line up properly with the animation, and as a result, it looks, well, choppy. All joking aside, you can see how they're shifting left and right, and when you have a lot of peasants chopping wood, it honestly looks ridiculous and disorienting. And like one angle has them shifting up and down and it just looks real janky, and then you press F5 and switch to the old graphics and whoop, now their animations look right and are aligned properly. So it's just really, really jarring to see. Another one I found, although it looks like they did fix it, was with human oil tankers. If they were facing left or right, then they'll have oil in their tank even if they're empty. On this mission, I'm given one, and after I saved the red base, I saw it had oil in it, and I was like, wait, when the hell did I send it for oil? Then I moved it, and I found that it was a sprite glitch, so just another thing that Blizzard initially overlooked, but as I mentioned, it does look like they fixed the sprite error since, so at least they're staying on top of it. The good news is that it basically plays almost exactly as old Warcraft II did, and since you could switch to the old graphics at will, I would hope so. I did try out the online play, but from what I can tell, hardly anyone plays, either because it's too new, more people are still playing Warcraft 3's online, or there are much better ways to play Warcraft 2 online, and I will link those methods in the description. I think the most disappointing thing about Warcraft 2 Remastered is that it's exactly what it says on the tin, a remaster. Although I would love to see a full-fledged remake of Warcraft 2 come out at some point, maybe with a new engine built from the ground up, maybe the spells get rebalanced like Bloodlust and Heal to make the races more balanced, and also some other features, like maybe they can include queuing units up like you can in Warcraft 3 and StarCraft. These are just among many things that I would love to see in a new Warcraft 2 remake. But this is something, and at least Blizzard hasn't totally forgotten about Warcraft 2. So, is Warcraft 2 Remastered worth it? I think that really depends, but if you already own Warcraft 2, then I'd say no. If you do own Warcraft 2 through Battle.net, then I think you can get the remastered version discounted, which in that case, I'd say it might be more worth it if you really want the new graphics. On the other hand, if you have never played Warcraft 2, then I think this is an excellent introduction for it. You can go ahead and buy the remastered version because I think it definitely includes some real good features that make it more accessible to newer players. It's not as polished as Warcraft 3 is, but for history's sake, I think you should definitely check it out because Warcraft 2 can be an absolute blast, especially if you're playing with other players. With that being said, is this an acceptable remaster of Warcraft 2? Let me know in the comments.